spectrum frontiers. Riding hard, standing tall. From the heart of the people to the rise and the fall. Full spectrum frontiers. Where the stories ignite. Guarding tomorrow with grit in the fight.
Welcome back to Full Spectrum Frontiers. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton. If you're new here, this show is about understanding the world we're actually living in, not the one we wish we were living in. We talk about full spectrum conflict, military, economic, informational, cultural, psychological, and everything in between, because whether you realize it or not, you are already inside it. The battlefield has expanded. The front line is wherever you're standing. And today's episode might hit closer to home than most, literally. Recently, the FBI confirmed that foreign threat actors breached the water control system of Littleton, Massachusetts. Littleton. Not Boston, not New York, not Washington. A small town, a town with Little League, church potlucks, a Dunkin' Donuts with a drive-through that's always backed up, in the water treatment plant with a computer system someone halfway across the world was able to access. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a story you scroll past. Oh, weird hack, tech issue, moving on. But I want you to slow down for a second, because this wasn't just a glitch. It wasn't just a prank. The FBI said this hack was one of around 200. Let me say that again. 200 targeting small water utilities around the country. If you're willing to go after the water of Littleton, Massachusetts, what isn't a target? Former NSA director Tim Hague said it plainly. Every target is on the list. And it's what we're getting into today. Because when a foreign adversary goes after the small, the overlooked, the unnoticed, they're not aiming at the town. They're aiming at the country. They're mapping the soft underbelly. They're pre-positioning, preparing, setting the stage for a conflict that won't start with the headline. It will start with taps that don't run, lights that don't come on, and emergency systems that don't respond. The war before the war. But here's the thing. I'm not here to fearmonger. I don't believe fear is the right fuel. I believe awareness is. Understanding is. Courage is. There is not a single challenge we cannot rise to if we see it clearly and act with intention. The only thing that stops us from pretending nothing is happening. So today, in this episode, we're going to break this down into 3 parts. Section 1, the silent battlefield, how infrastructure became the front line. Section 2, pre-positioning, why foreign adversaries are infiltrating now, long before conflict ever goes hot. And Section 3, local weakness, national risk, and how everyday communities have become strategic gateways and what we can do about it. My goal isn't to overwhelm you. It's to give you the clarity to recognize the landscape and move confidently within it. Because you don't need panic. We need purpose. Before we jump in, if this show adds value to your life, if it challenges you, encourages you, gives you something to consider on your drive to work or late at night when you're sitting with a cup of coffee, please take a moment to like, share, and review the podcast. It helps this message reach more people who need it. All right, let's get into it. Section 1, the silent battlefield. Let's start here. War used to be easy to recognize. You could see it. Soldiers on the battlefield, aircraft overhead, tanks rolling in. The symbols were visible. The threat was obvious. It didn't require explanation. Today, the battlefield is quieter, more subtle, less cinematic, and honestly, way more effective. One of the biggest shifts in modern conflict is that the front line isn't over there anymore. It isn't something that happens across an ocean while we watch it on the news and shake our heads before going back to our day. The battlefield is here. It's embedded in everyday life. It's in the systems that keep society functioning. Water, power, communication, transportation, healthcare, and food supply chains. These systems are what we call critical infrastructure, and most Americans rarely think about it, totally take it for granted. The water comes out of the tap. Great. The lights turn on when I flip the switch. As expected. The grocery store is stocked. Totally normal. But behind the scenes, all of this is controlled by a network of industrial control systems, computers, software, sensors, remote access modules, and a significant portion of these systems are old. I mean, not antique, but outdated. Many towns built their infrastructure long before cybersecurity was even a concept. Some utilities still run on software from the early 2000s. Some still have default passwords like admin123 because the system was set up once 15 years ago and no one touched it again. This isn't negligence. It's just reality. Small towns don't have cybersecurity budgets. They have budgets for potholes, snow removal, and replacing the one truck that keeps breaking down. So when we ask, why would a foreign adversary go after a town of 9,000 people and a water plant with 3 employees? The answer is simple. Because it's easy. And because once you're inside one system like that, you're not just inside a small town, you're inside the broader infrastructure landscape. These systems connect. They share vendors. They share software. They share remote access providers. Small is not irrelevant. Small is the doorway. Now, let's talk about intent. Foreign cyber operators don't break into these systems to flip a switch immediately. They're not trying to poison a water supply today. They're not trying to shut it down, the grid tomorrow. That would be loud. That would be a declaration. What they want is access. Think about it like a burglar quietly unlocking your back door and then walking away. They don't need to break in now. They just want to know they can. Because if you ever enter a period of heightened conflict, political, military, economic, whatever form it takes, that back door becomes leverage. I mean, imagine you're negotiating foreign policy. You're in a trade dispute. You're sanctioning a hostile government. Or you're responding to military aggression and they shut off the lights in the Midwest, or cut water to a dozen towns, or disrupt emergency communications across the region. That's not just cyber warfare, that's power projection. Strategic advantage without even firing a shot. This is what military professionals refer to as gray zone conflict. The space between peace and open war. Tension without declaration. Pressure without fire. It's not dramatic, so most people don't even notice it. But it's more dangerous than a tank column rolling across the border because it's happening right now, quietly, with no headlines. Now, Here's where this gets real. When the FBI says there have been around 200 intrusions targeting small water systems, they're not talking about bored teenagers in basements. They're referring to a coordinated foreign state affiliated cyber groups. These intrusions are not random. They're not accidental. They're mapping exercises. They're finding who's monitoring, who's asleep at the wheel, where the vulnerabilities are, and how to access them again later without being detected. This is reconnaissance. It's military intelligence. This is shaping the battlefield. And the battlefield isn't overseas. It's not a desert. It's not a coastline. It's your town, your neighborhood, your infrastructure, the place where your kids play, where you drink the water, where you go to work. We need to understand that cyber warfare is not theoretical. It's not future conflict. It's here, it's active, and it's ongoing, and it's happening in silence. That's the part I want us to absorb. We are not waiting for the first move. The first move has already been made. We are already inside the conflict. The question now is, do we recognize it? And do we choose to respond intentionally, intelligently, or with clarity instead of shock when the lights go out? That's the silent battlefield. Section 2, pre-positioning, why they're doing this now. To understand how foreign adversaries are slipping quietly into small-town infrastructure, we need to shift how we think about conflict. Most people think war starts when something explodes. A missile strike, a bombing run, the kind of moment where everyone instantly knows life has changed. That's not how modern conflict works anymore. In 2025, war begins with access, not explosions. Foreign states are breaking into our water systems, our electrical co-ops, our hospital networks, our rail signaling systems, and in some cases, even our school district servers. I mean, they've done this already, long before any conflict is declared. They're not doing this randomly. They're creating options. This is called pre-positioning. Pre-positioning means gaining silent access into another country's critical systems so that in the future, when the political climate shifts, the pressure can be applied instantly and effectively. Think of it like placing a hand on the light switch in someone else's house and waiting. You don't flip it yet. You wait for the right moment. We have seen this tactic before. Russia pre-positioned inside Ukraine's power grid years before the 2014 annexation of Crimea and long before the 2022 invasion. When they needed leverage, they didn't have to build new cyber tools. They already had the access. They already understood how the system worked. So when it came time to act, they shut off parts of Ukraine's grid in the dead of winter. They weren't experimenting. They were executing what had been prepared long in advance. The same pattern is appearing here in the United States, just in earlier stages. What happened in Littleton wasn't about Littleton. It was about testing how deep the access could go, how quickly defenders can respond, whether alarms are triggered, how much time an intruder can remain inside undetected. It is reconnaissance layered with strategic foresight. A foreign intelligence service looks at America's infrastructure and sees something different than we do. We see routine, reliability, safety, expectation. They see fragmentation, thousands of small, underprotected entry points. And if even 10% of those points can be quietly accessed and maintained, that creates a national vulnerability that can be activated whenever it is useful. The U.S. is an incredibly powerful country, but we are also very decentralized. We like local governance, county level utilities, community run electrical boards. It is part of our culture. The trade-off is that national resilience depends on the cybersecurity posture of every water district superintendent and every part-time IT tech in every small town, from Maine all the way to Arizona. Our adversaries understand this perfectly. So why now? Reason one, global tensions are increasing. They're living through a period of increased geopolitical friction. Great power competition is back. Economic sanctions, proxy conflicts, ideological influence battles, all of it is heating up. The more uncertain the global environment becomes, the more valuable foreign states see the ability to apply pressure inside the United States quietly. Reason two, the United States is digitally connected. Almost every industrial system is now remotely accessible because remote access makes maintenance easier and cheaper. But remote access also means remote vulnerability. What was once protected by physical distance is now one password away. Reason three, the psychological value. Shutting off power or water in a major city is dramatic. It causes panic and it escalates quickly. But shutting off water to a small town of 6,000 people, that can go unnoticed by the broader public, but still creates measurable stress at a local level. It allows adversaries to test the edges without waking the giant. This is cold strategy, not chaos. The adversarial mindset is simple. If you can control the things a population needs daily, you can influence their behavior, their political decisions, and their emotional state. You don't need to win battles overseas if you can make life difficult inside the border. Conflict becomes less about territory and more about leverage. And leverage comes from access. The Department of Justice has already indicated Iranian-linked hackers who targeted U.S. critical infrastructure systems. That is a matter of public record. These charges detail explicit efforts to compromise municipal water facilities, energy companies, and public works operations. This isn't guesswork. This is actually happening right now. So what do we do with this information? First, we have to stop treating cybersecurity like an IT problem. It is not. It is a national security issue. Infrastructure resilience is no longer optional. It's absolutely foundational. Second, we have to expand the concept of defense. Defense is not only military force. Defense is preparation, redundancy, awareness, training, coordination. The Community Water Board is as much a defense asset as a military base. That may feel strange to say, but it is where the world is now. Goodness. Third, we need to recognize that we are participants in this conflict, whether we engage consciously or not. The silent battlefield runs under our feet every day. Understanding that is the first step to responding to it with clarity rather than surprise. This brings us to the next part of today's episode. Section 3, Local Weakness, National Risk. Let's strip the jargon. Small towns are attractive because they are affordable affordable targets. A rural water authority might have one IT person, if that. They inherited old software, vendor-installed remote access, and a stack of to-do items that never make the budget meeting. That is not moral failure. It is resource reality, which is exactly why foreign operators focus there first. When you can reliably walk through the side door of a dozen small utilities, you are building national level leverage piecemeal. EPA inspections since late 2023 tell the story. More than 70% of reviewed drinking water systems were violating basic cybersecurity requirements. Inspectors found default passwords still in use, shared logins, and credentials that were never revoked from employees that left. That is not hackers' myth. That is written in federal alerts to governors and utilities. If you want the receipts, read the EPA's March 2024 letter and the enforcement alert. They basically say the quiet part out loud. Basic cyber hygiene is missing in too many places to ignore. Why this matters at scale? These small systems are not isolated islands. Vendors often manage multiple client utilities with similar remote tools, similar configurations, and sometimes identical default passwords. A foothold in town A can translate to pattern recognition for towns B through Z. That is how reconnaissance becomes repeatable. CISA's water sector page and toolkits exist because this is not hypothetical. The attack surface is known, the weaknesses are common, and the fix list starts with boring discipline. We have seen real incidents that prove the point. The Laquipa, Pennsylvania case was a pressure monitoring device compromise tied to was a pressure monitoring device compromise tied to Iranian actors. The utility switched to manual operations and kept water flowing, which is exactly what resilient teams do, but the lesson stands. If a booster station telemetry is reachable, someone will eventually reach for it. Coverage from AP and sector write-ups laid out both the intrusion details and the legislative scramble that followed. Step back to the national picture. GAO's 2024 report is blunt. Nation-state actors, including Iran and China, have targeted U.S. water system and caused operational disruptions. The risk is not abstract, and the consequences are not limited to billing servers. Changes to treatment processes or loss of situational awareness can put public health at risk. Now, the constructive part, if the weakness is local, the counterweight must also be local. Here is what that looks like in a practice for a small utility that wants to punch above its weight. Tighten identity and access. Kill default passwords. Enforce unique accounts and role-based access. Remove vendor accounts that are not in active use. Turn on multi-factor authentication for anything with a public IP. This sounds basic because it is. The EPA letter literally cites unchanged defaults as a root problem. Segment operational tech from business IT. If your billing workstation can talk directly to plant controls, you are one phishing email away from a very bad day. Each course network separation with strict allow lists is a leap forward for small teams. CISA, Cyber Risks and Resources for the Water Sector, provides a starter guidance and a map to help choose controls that match staff capacity. I'll put all these links in the show notes. Know your assets. You cannot defend what you cannot see. Build and maintain a simple inventory of PLCs, HMIs, and remote access appliances and their firmware versions. The American Water Works Association keeps current guidance and assessment tools, including small systems resources. Use them. Practice manual failover. Al-Copia proved that people and clipboards still matter. Rehearse, safe shutdown, and manual operations of critical functions. That single habit converts a crisis into an inconvenience. Set a baseline and monitor it. Even a low-cost logging setup that tracks unusual remote connections and sudden config changes will catch a large percentage of amateur intrusions and shorten the dwell time of advanced ones. Partner with your state fusion center or ISAC to get free threat intel feeds. Train the humans. Most cyber incidents begin with persuasion. Phishing, spoof support calls, fake vendor emails, short, recurring refreshers outperform once a year checklists. EPA and CISA both run free training targeted to water systems, including very small utilities. This is a narrative trap we should avoid. It is easy to believe that local weakness equals inevitable failure. That is not true. Local weakness equals local opportunity. A small team can adopt a short list of high impact controls faster than a giant bureaucracy can coordinate a program. Many towns already are. AP's 2024 coverage highlighted both the rising attack tempo and the growing resolve among utilities to get ahead of it. The national risk is real because the pattern is scalable. The national answer is achievable because the fixes are repeatable. Utilities do not have to become cyber companies. They need to adopt a handful of guardrails, rehearse recovery, and plug into the free federal and association resources that already exist. This is not about perfection. It is about raising the floor everywhere so that pre-positioned access dries up the probing, and probing turns to noise. Remember the principle driving today's episode. The target of a Littleton is not Littleton. The target is confidence in the everyday functions of the United States. You harden enough small points and you take that lever away. Then the gray zone gets a little less gray. If you want a place to start this week, open 3 links and schedule 1 task. Open the EPA letter to governors so leadership sees the urgency. Open the CISA water toolkit and pick 1 checklist. Open the AWWA small systems guidance and run the first assessment. Then schedule a 45-minute tabletop on how your team would operate manually for 24 hours. Those 4 steps cost very little and move you measurably forward. If you're still here with me, I want to say thank you. These aren't always easy conversations. It's a lot simpler to scroll past headlines, to assume someone else is managing it, or to believe vulnerability only matters if it's happening somewhere distant and dramatic. But the truth, the real truth, is that the strength of this country has always come from ordinary people paying attention and taking responsibility for their own corner of the world. We are not powerless. We are not outmatched. We are not asleep at the wheel. We are in a moment that calls for awareness and steady action, not panic, not dread, just the understanding that the world is changing and we can either react late or prepare early. What happened in Littleton, Massachusetts was not a failure story. It was an alert, a flare shot into the sky, a reminder that our towns, our water boards, our electrical co-ops, our school district IT closets are part of the national security landscape now, not metaphorically, but literally. So here's a simple takeaway you can carry into your week. Know that the battlefield has shifted. Understand that local systems matter. And remember that resilience begins close to home. If you want to support your community directly, you don't need security clearance, software, or a uniform. You can share this episode with a friend who sits on your town board, your local utility commission, your fire department volunteers, your school superintendent, your neighbor who works at Public Works. Start a conversation. Ask what the plan is. Ask what help is needed. Awareness is the first layer of defense. It always has been. All right, before we wrap up, if this episode gave you something to think about, if it challenged you, helped you see the battlefield a little more clearly, or made you recognize your role in this bigger picture, please take a moment to like, share, and review the podcast. That small gesture makes a real difference in helping this message reach the people who need to hear it. We are building a community here, a community of people who don't look away, who don't wait for someone else to fix it, who understand that strength begins at the level of the individual and expands outward. I appreciate you for being part of that. This has been Full Spectrum Frontiers. I'm Bennett Tanton. Stay aware, stay steady, keep your eyes open, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Carry the fire through shadows and storm. Voices of yesterday guiding us on. Echoes of duty, the call we still hear. Building tomorrow with courage, not fear. Stand your ground, keep the watch through the night. Guarding tomorrow where freedom's alight. Through every trial, the truth will endure. Full spectrum frontiers, steady and sure. From fields of the past to horizons unknown, the seeds that we plant are the future we own. Stories of valor, of lessons we've learned, a legacy carried, a torch ever burned. Stand